welcome to Finding Your Frequency. I'm Brian Sexton, joined today by Nick Padlo from Sophros Recovery. Hey, Nick, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, Brian?
Good, really good. You're the chief problem solver.
Yeah.
How'd you get here?
So I found myself, I was running a business out of Dallas.
Yeah.
And I found myself like struggling with mental health, with alcohol, with drugs, and really just started to spiral downwards. And so really started my journey through rehab again. I went over to Cambodia and practiced mindfulness for a few months.
Yeah. How was that? By the way?
It was just what I needed. You know, an Army guy. I'm an Army guy by trade, so Army guy from the South going over to do this, hippie stuff. I never would have thought it would have been the perfect thing for me, but it was.
So what you've built is a culmination of your own personal experience and then other people's experiences, right?
Yeah, it's my personal experience and then kind of putting on my entrepreneur hat and saying, hey, where are we doing people a disservice when they're trying to get well and they're struggling with addiction? Like, where are we underserving them?
Right.
And I think we can do that better.
Where'd you see the hole in the market?
So a lot of people know about rehab.
Yeah.
So you go to rehab, you're gone for 30 days. I went to rehab. It can be a great thing. The challenge is you're in this safe bubble. And, of course, you're not messing up because you're safe.
You're protected.
But it's when you get out and you say, I've got to drive home. I've got to leave this place today and go to my next meeting, and I'm going to drive by a liquor store. I'm going to drive by 2 gas stations. I'm going to drive by all sorts of things that can get me into trouble. How do I learn how to act in the world while I'm facing life's, lifeiness, so to speak? And so that's what we really do is we operate at an outpatient level where our clients are with us 3 to 6 hours a day, but then they have to go home at the end of the day, and we can recap and we can say, hey, what was hard?
Right.
What went wrong? Did you screw up last night? All right, let's talk about how to do that differently today. Did you do it right, but it was hard? Okay, what do we need to do different?
So why have you been so successful? Is it because your approach is so distinct, or is it because the people that you hire?
I think it's largely the people.
Okay.
I think that having people who are all focused around the same mission of helping clients regain their lives is so important, right? That's what they're here for.
Right.
But then the second piece is, so often in addiction we say, okay, well, let's not drink, let's not use. That didn't work, let's try harder. Well, like, try harder is not a philosophy,
No, not
right?
in that, no.
And so we have to figure out what you're struggling with. Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it relationships, trauma,
So
emotions?
you go deep.
We go deep.
You're looking
Yeah.
for the root.
Yeah, and it's hard work, right? It's hard work to look that deep within ourselves, but then once we learn how to do that, not only can we hopefully stay sober, but we can also live a better life going forward.
Right. Was it difficult to find the right people to be able to execute your mission? Because as we talked about, you came from your own experience.
Right.
And saw where it needed to be changed. Have you found other people that have had a very similar path?
I think the first couple people saw my passion and decided to buy in on a dream,
Okay.
right? And so they were probably the hardest to get because there was nothing. There were no clients, there was no treatment, and it was nothing. But then once we started to get going, I think that the way we did things and the people that were already there started to attract people that were like attracts like. And so once we got large enough, now it's like, okay, if we want to really do real therapy and really help people get well, like, that's the place to go.
Right.
And I think we're starting to get known as that.
And that's why you're expanding, right? Were you telling me that you just opened an office in Tampa?
We just opened an office in Tampa a little less than a year ago, and we just opened a virtual practice. So now we can do the same addiction treatment for people that might not have access to come into our facility here in Jacksonville.
So what's the big vision? How do you cover the whole state? Do you cover the whole country? Where are you going?
Grow slowly
Okay.
and prudently.
I suppose that's most important because it depends on the client, right?
Yeah, I've been in a world where, in my former life, I was in a world where it was like grow fast and break things. We can't do that because we have clients whose lives depend on us, right? And so I want to grow and be able to impact as many people as we can, but then also be able to do that in a way that makes sure that our client care stays as strong as it is, that our team stays strong, and
Right.
you can only grow so fast, so it's measured growth.
Obviously, you have the same challenges that a lot of business owners have, and that gets rigorous, especially as you're growing into other markets and into other languages, because didn't you say Spanish is now?
We did, yeah,
Right.
Spanish as well.
But I imagine when your head hits the pillow at the end of the day, there is a sense of gratification because of the work that you're doing and the results that you're getting that's hard to quantify, maybe.
There is so much that goes wrong in the day of the life of an entrepreneur, right? Every day is either amazing or bad, and sometimes every hour to hour, right? But it's that ability to get up and just be excited about the work we do that helps me deal with that personally. Otherwise, I think it wouldn't be something I wanted to do.
So I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
Finding your frequency. What was a defining moment in your life? Everyone has one.
Yeah.
Where maybe not everything turned, but at least you kind of saw the future.
I mean, I think 9/11 was a big one for me,
Okay.
because I was sitting in an English classroom at West Point, and so that meant that I was going to war, and so the next 10 years of my life were really marked by that moment. And then I think another one was the time I decided to ask for help.
Yeah.
I had been spiraling for years and not saying anything to anyone and just trying to be tougher than the disease.
Work
right?
harder, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it just didn't work. And so that day when I hit my breaking point, and it was bad, right? I mean, it was rock bottom for me. But I still was able to, find up enough courage to reach out and pick up the phone and ask for help. And that's when things started. There were still ups and downs after that, but that's when it really started to turn.
I ask people about the obstacle. You've pretty much answered that question. But
Yeah.
what was it like at the bottom when you had to make that turn?
Yeah. I mean,
and
frankly,
start climbing.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I was sitting in a hotel room in Dallas trying to decide if it was going to be my last day, and that was it. I didn't get the DUI arrest, but I did get to the point where it was like, this is it. I don't want to live like this anymore.
Right.
And I realized, and if anybody else out there struggling, it's like, there's kind of two options when you're there. You might say, I don't want to live anymore,
Yep.
but you might be saying, I don't want to live like this anymore.
Right.
And if it's the latter, we can make some changes.
One word can change everything. And look at what you're doing now. That's incredible. So how about a tip? How about a piece of advice for someone? I talk about it being
Yep.
finding your frequency and what your vision for your life is.
Yep.
But maybe it's just success in dealing with the craziness of the manicness of life. But how about a tip for someone that they can take away from this interview?
One of the things that we always say is nothing changes if nothing changes. So whatever you're dealing with in your life, nothing's going to change unless we make some changes. And so we've got to take some action and do some things differently than perhaps, we always say our best thinking got us here.
Okay.
And so sometimes we got to think a little differently, and sometimes we got to reach out to somebody else to get a third-party perspective.
Nothing changes if nothing changes. From a man who is changing the rehabilitation space. Nick, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate
Look
it.
forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you.
And that'll do it for this edition of Finding Your Frequency. We'll see you next time.